A betrayed woman becomes either a weapon or a mirror of what's broken in you. Jordan Peterson. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. The most dangerous woman is the one who's been left, especially if she wasn't left alone, but left with a child in her arms and 1,000 unfinished hopes in her chest. Something breaks in her, not like a glass, like a whole world collapsing inward, and there's no one there to help her carry it. She doesn't cry right away. First, she freezes. Her body turns to stone. Her chest hardens. Her face becomes unreadable. That's the first symptom of being left. The nervous system stops trusting the world, stops trusting safety, love. Her body remembers the door slamming. Her ears remember the silence after. Her heart remembers the hope it was still holding on to. Right up until it wasn't. And this is where it begins. She starts becoming someone else. Not because she wants to, because she has no other choice. A woman who gets left, especially when she has no backup, no money, no family ready to rescue her, doesn't just move on. She mutates. She grows armor where she used to have skin. She starts carrying responsibilities that were never meant for one pair of shoulders. She becomes the man, the protector, the provider, the planner, the engine, the wall, the back, the claws. She becomes everything, and she does it fast because there's no time. The child is crying. The bills are piling up. The world is still turning, and no one's asking how she feels. No one's coming. That's the most brutal realization. It doesn't come with tears. It comes with adrenaline, with cortisol, with insomnia. She learns to function in a state of permanent pressure. Coffee replaces sleep. Task lists replace touch. She doesn't have time to grieve. Grief is a luxury for the safe, and safety's gone now. She walks down the street, and people say she's strong, but they don't see the cost. They don't see the numbness in her fingers. They don't hear the noise in her head. They don't know how hard she clenches her jaw in her sleep, or how often she opens the fridge not to eat, but to remind herself she's alive. Because she forgets sometimes, this isn't healing, this isn't recovery, this is survival. And survival changes people. It rewires the brain. It shuts down softness. It files away the parts of her that once bloomed with color. She becomes grayscale, efficient, calculating, not because she wants to win, but because losing is not an option anymore. This is the tragedy no one talks about. The transformation of a woman into a soldier, a one-woman army, a warrior with no choice but to march forward. And in that march, she slowly erases herself, not out of weakness, out of necessity. Her feminine side, the one that wanted to be held, that loved to laugh, that danced in the kitchen when no one was watching, starts dying. Not all at once, bit by bit, day by day, in every moment where she had to be strong instead of be real. In every moment where she said, "I'm fine," instead of collapsing. In every moment where she swallowed her scream because the world doesn't tolerate a woman's rage, especially not a mother's. Her body still remembers what it felt like to be touched with tenderness. But now, it flinches. It no longer expects safety. It expects tasks, challenges, resistance. She wakes up not with dreams, but with missions. And by now, even she believes that this is just how it has to be. But this is not strength. This is a scar. And it tells a story most people aren't brave enough to hear. If you've lived this, you don't need explanations. You know exactly what it means to wake up and feel like there's no one to lean on. You've already figured out that the world doesn't hand you medals for carrying what two people should have carried together. The world just expects you to keep going. But the truth is, you're not just surviving. You've turned into something terrifyingly effective. You get things done. You push through. You make it work. And on the surface, that looks like success. But deep down, something inside you is silently cracking. Because being in control all the time comes at a price. It kills the part of you that once trusted, that once let go, that once waited to be taken care of. You've become the planner, the driver, the decision maker, the fixer. There's no softness in that, no space to fall apart, no room for someone else to take the wheel. And here's the brutal paradox. The more independent you become, the more alone you feel. Not because independence is wrong, but because you built it from fear, not freedom. You didn't choose this. You were thrown into it. And now, even if someone tries to love you, you don't know how to let them. You don't believe they'll stay. You don't believe they'll understand. You've been left once, and your nervous system still remembers the fall. This is why women like you struggle with softness, with intimacy, with receiving, because everything inside you screams, don't rely on anyone. You tell yourself you're doing fine. You post your accomplishments. You smile at the right moments. But when the door closes at night, the silence is deafening. And the loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about not knowing who you are anymore, not remembering the version of you that existed before the armor, the version that wasn't always in control, the version that laughed for no reason and didn't have to explain herself to anyone. And the worst part is, everyone around you praises this version of you. They call you powerful, inspiring, a superwoman. But no one asks if you're tired. No one sees the nights where you stare at the ceiling, wondering how long you can keep this up. No one sees how often you fantasize about rest, not a vacation, but a full-body exhale. The kind of rest where someone else holds the line. The kind of rest where you don't have to be the strong one for once. But your world is built on holding it together, so you don't allow yourself to stop. Because if you stop, everything might collapse. And here's what most psychologists won't tell you. This version of you is a trauma response. It's functional, it's polished, it's disciplined, but it's built on fear, on survival, on abandonment. And you can't heal what you keep calling strength. You can't return to yourself while pretending that the version built from pain is your final form. That's the biggest trap of all. To confuse coping with transformation, to confuse surviving with healing, to confuse independence with wholeness. If these words land in your chest like a truth you've been avoiding, subscribe to the channel. Let's make sure more women hear what no one else is saying. And if you want to go deeper, join the Telegram. We're building a space for those who are done pretending they're fine. What happens deep inside a woman after she's been left isn't visible from the outside, but it runs her. It governs her reactions, her choices, her relationships. And the most painful part is, most of it happens unconsciously, because what the mind doesn't process, the body carries, and what the body can't release turns into identity. She doesn't just feel abandoned, she becomes the abandoned. And that identity starts to color everything. She might say she's fine. She might build a business, raise a child, create a life, but the internal program is still running. I was left. I was not chosen. I must never let that happen again. This is where the shadow begins. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is everything we reject in ourselves, everything we suppress, deny, exile. For women who've been left, the shadow often contains the most vulnerable parts, the needy parts, the emotional parts, the longing, the softness, the trust. She learns to suppress all of that because she believes it makes her weak. And so, without realizing it, she becomes dominated by her opposite, the masculine. She becomes cold, driven, sharp, self-reliant to the point of isolation. She doesn't ask. She doesn't cry. She doesn't admit when it hurts, because somewhere along the way, she associated pain with failure. But the paradox is brutal. The more she hides her shadow, the more it controls her. She starts attracting relationships where she's abandoned again, not because she's broken, but because her nervous system is wired for repetition. What's familiar feels safe, even if it's painful. So she ends up proving her deepest fear, that she'll always be left, not because she wants to, but because her unconscious mind keeps dragging her into the same loop, trying to resolve what was never processed. This isn't about blame. This is about patterns. Patterns that were often formed long before that man left her. Sometimes in childhood, sometimes passed down from mother to daughter. And when she finally starts to look at that shadow, not judge it, not fix it, but really sit with it, something shifts. She starts to see that the parts she called weak were never the problem. Her vulnerability wasn't the issue. Her emotional depth wasn't a flaw. It was the betrayal, the silence, the lack of dialogue. That's what broke her. And here's the truth. Most relationships don't end because of incompatibility. They end because neither side knows how to sit in discomfort and speak truth. They end because both people were taught to run instead of face. Because fear disguised itself as pride. Because no one taught them how to listen without defense. Healing starts with naming that, with seeing the shadow not as the enemy, but as the key to freedom, to intimacy, to wholeness. And that shadow, that abandoned part of her, isn't dead. It's waiting to be met, not managed, to be held, not silenced, to be integrated, not avoided. Only when she stops rejecting those parts can she finally come home to herself. And from that place, a different kind of strength is born. Not the strength to survive, the strength to be fully alive. There's a hidden grief that comes when a woman abandons her softness to survive. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand attention. It simply settles into her bones, into the tightness of her shoulders, into the way she stops dreaming. She doesn't say, "I've lost myself." She just keeps going, more organized, more efficient, more distant, and the world rewards her for it. No one questions why she's always in control, why she doesn't cry, why her laugh doesn't reach her eyes anymore. But underneath that armor, there's a quiet mourning for the version of her that once believed in love without needing to protect herself from it. She begins to measure her worth by output, by what she can do, fix, hold, carry. And in that endless doing, she forgets how to simply be. Rest becomes a threat. Intimacy becomes a risk. Trust becomes a luxury she can't afford. And the worst part, she starts to believe this is empowerment, that shutting down parts of herself is maturity, that rejecting her tenderness is evolution. But it's not. It's grief in disguise. It's the internalization of abandonment. And that grief turns into rigidity, into hyper-independence, into a kind of emotional starvation that looks like self-sufficiency on the outside, but feels like slow suffocation within. Yes, she gains things in this process. She becomes more capable, more focused, more self-led. She learns how to make decisions fast, how to protect herself, how to raise a child and run a business without flinching. But there's a trade, a deep, often invisible one. Her nervous system never drops into safety. Her heart beats in alert mode. Her mind scans for disappointment before hope even gets a chance to appear. She doesn't ask, Can I receive? She asks. How long until they leave? And so, the very strength she built to survive ends up blocking her from ever feeling truly alive. There's something powerful that also awakens in a woman when she's been forced to stand alone. Yes, there is grief, collapse, survival, but eventually, there's also awakening. She starts to see what she's truly capable of. Not in theory, in practice. She learns how to navigate chaos, how to protect herself, how to set boundaries that used to terrify her. She discovers her voice, the one she silenced for years to keep peace. She makes decisions without asking for permission. She handles money, future plans, emergencies, alone. And she realizes she can. That realization doesn't make the pain disappear, but it does plant a seed of real self-respect, because no one who's carried that much alone walks away the same. She becomes sharper in her instincts, more honest in her no, more precise in her yes. She stops apologizing for needing space, for being clear, for not accepting crumbs. That version of her, born through fire, is no longer willing to be small just to make someone stay. She may still long for love, but not at the cost of herself. And that's the turning point, when she stops begging to be seen and starts choosing where she offers her presence. When she stops waiting to be saved and becomes her own safety, not as a performance, as a truth. But here's the paradox. As she grows stronger, the world becomes more uncomfortable with her, because she no longer plays the role. The soft, agreeable, always giving version of her is gone, and many can't handle her clarity, her boundaries, her unwillingness to tolerate emotional laziness. And that's fine. She's not here to be palatable. She's here to be whole. And yes, wholeness includes softness, but not the kind that comes from fear. It's the softness that's rooted in power. The kind that says, I can hold myself now, so I don't need to beg you to. The hardest truth to accept is that many relationships fall apart not because of lack of love, but because no one knew how to stay when it got uncomfortable. So much pain could be avoided if people just had the courage to speak. Not to blame, not to accuse, but to reveal. To say, this hurts, instead of shutting down. To say, I'm scared, instead of pretending to be fine. But most of us were never taught how to do that. We were taught to suppress, to perform, to protect our pride. And when two people are both defending instead of connecting, the relationship dies, not with an explosion, but with silence. For many women who've been left, the pain isn't just in the leaving. It's in everything that was never said before it. The avoidance, the denial, the fake normality right before the exit. That's what haunts them. Not just the absence of the partner, but the absence of honesty, the absence of shared responsibility. And so they start carrying the full blame. They replay every argument, every moment, wondering what they missed, wondering what they could have fixed. And in doing so, they take on a burden that was never just theirs. Relationships don't fail in isolation. They fail in disconnect, in misalignment, in fear of truth. And that's why healing requires more than just moving on. It requires looking back, not to dwell, but to understand what wasn't said, what wasn't felt, what part of you tried to shrink just to keep the peace. Where did you betray your own needs to maintain the illusion of harmony? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're the questions that free you. Because the goal isn't to never be left again. The goal is to never abandon yourself again, even if someone else does. When a woman commits to that, to staying with herself, everything changes. Her choices, her energy, her presence, her standards. And from that place, she no longer enters relationships out of need, but out of desire. She no longer tries to earn love through sacrifice. She no longer tolerates confusion as a substitute for connection. She becomes more honest, more discerning, more willing to be alone than to pretend. And yes, she'll still want love, but not the kind that costs her her peace, not the kind that needs her to become less just to make someone else stay. She's not looking for someone to rescue her anymore. She's looking for someone who's done rescuing themselves. Someone who can meet her, not complete her. Someone who can speak, stay, grow with her, not above her. That's the kind of relationship most people dream of, but aren't ready for, because it demands honesty. It demands emotional maturity. It demands the willingness to be seen, fully, messily, completely. But that kind of love only becomes possible when two people are no longer hiding from themselves, when both are willing to walk through discomfort, not around it, when truth is valued more than comfort, when presence is more important than performance. And the only way to get there is to start with you, to build that kind of connection with yourself first, to learn your own language, to stop ghosting your own needs, because no one can hold you the way you can hold you. And once you've done that, once you've stayed with yourself through the darkest nights, you stop chasing people who can't even sit with their own silence. You stop craving the kind of love that disappears when things get hard. And you start creating a different kind of life, one built on truth. Not perfection, not roles, not illusions, just truth. And from there, everything real begins. Real healing isn't about never being hurt again. It's about learning how to build something different, not perfect, but honest. A kind of relationship where two people don't run at the first sign of tension, but pause and talk. Where silence isn't a weapon, but a space to breathe. Where roles fall away and presence takes their place. If you've made it this far, you're not just surviving anymore. You're becoming ready. Ready for love that doesn't require you to disappear to be accepted. Ready for love that can hold the full weight of truth. And if you're ready, here are 10 core principles gathered from the most powerful relationship books of all time that can transform not just how you love, but who you choose and how long it lasts. These are not theories. These are practical rules tested by thousands that protect love from erosion and keep connection alive. 1. Always speak your truth early, even if your voice shakes. From Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. The longer you suppress what bothers you, the deeper the disconnection grows. Don't wait until it explodes. Express with vulnerability, not blame. 2. Learn your partner's love language and speak it daily. From The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. What feels like love to you may not register as love to them. Learn their language, touch, words, time, acts, gifts, and use it consciously. 3. Never argue to win, argue to understand. From Non-Violent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. If one person wins, the relationship loses. Shift the goal. Seek mutual clarity, not control. 4. Repair every rupture, no matter how small. From Attached by Amir Levine. Fights are not the problem. Unrepaired fights are. Always return. Always reconnect. Small wounds become distance if left untreated. 5. Share your fears, not just your needs. From The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. Beneath every demand is a fear. Instead of saying, "You never support me," say, "I'm scared to feel alone in this." 6. Stop testing their love. start trusting their presence. From Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. Constantly forcing your partner to prove themselves creates emotional fatigue. Trust is built by consistency, not surveillance. 7. Schedule intimacy, emotional and physical. From Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. Waiting for perfect moments kills passion. Create rituals of connection. Prioritize closeness like anything else that matters. 8. Choose curiosity over assumption, always. From Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix. Your partner is not you. Their logic, wounds, desires, they're different. Ask instead of assume. Wonder instead of judge. 9. Work on yourself so they don't have to raise your inner child. From Women Who Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. Your partner is not your parent. Your healing is your responsibility. Show up whole, not hungry. 10. Keep choosing them, even on hard days, especially then. From every real love story ever written. Love is not a feeling. It's a daily choice, a practice, a decision to show up again and again with presence, patience, and truth. If these words stayed with you, subscribe to the channel. Let's make sure more people hear what truly builds love, not what breaks it. And don't forget to join the Telegram. We go even deeper there, with voices that aren't afraid to face their truth. If this video shifted something inside you, write in the comments. I accept love built on truth. Let's see how many of us are ready for real-rooted connection. This is not the end. This is the beginning of something entirely different.